What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. As you can see in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 2016 PlayStation 4 Ratchet and Clank game, or as some people refer to it as the movie Ratchet and Clank game, because this game was on the box art. It says the video game based on the movie based on the video game, which is very true because there was a movie made back around this time. The only Ratchet and Clank movie out there, so it's pretty cool. I didn't mind it at all, but I know the critics kind of tore it apart a little bit, but I thought it was a good movie. It wasn't too bad at all. Now this game was such a nostalgia blast for me, not because this is my first time I'd ever played it, but because I haven't played a Ratchet and Clank game since Up Your Arsenal on the PS2. As you guys may have known from me talking about the Ratchet and Clank series in the past, I used to absolutely love it when I was a kid, and this was such a nostalgia blast. It's so much fun, such a good game, and just it's incredible. And if you haven't played it, it's super cheap. I got a brand new copy of this game, PlayStation Hits, brand new copy for $15. So it's a cheap game, really good, lots of fun. Not a very long game though. It only took me about 9 hours to beat the entire thing, and that's with collecting all the RYNO cards and all the gold bolts. Now I want to talk a little bit about all the weapons. So in this game, there is quite a few weapons. There's the fusion grenade, the combustor, the pyrocitor, the proton drum, the bouncer, Mr. Zircon, the Groovatron, pixelizer, predator launcher, plasma striker, warmonger, sheepinator, glove of doom, buzz blades, and lastly the RYNO if you collect all the RYNO cards throughout the entire game. Now out of all those weapons, probably my favorite weapons out of the whole bunch, like the combustor was just really good. It's your basic rifle you start with, and it's just got really good range, and once you upgrade it, it shoots 3 shots, and it just becomes actually a pretty good gun from all ranges. It's good at taking out weak enemies, it's good at hitting bosses from a decent range, and it's just an overall really good gun. And then there's also the Predator launcher was pretty good too. It wasn't too bad. It was good at taking out small hordes of enemies because you could target multiple enemies and then blast them all at once. And then the Warmonger, it was phenomenal. Once you upgraded it, got a little bit more ammo and everything. It was one of the better guns in the game that I absolutely loved because it's just a rocket launcher that once you upgrade it enough, it shoots missiles that'll track the enemy, and it's just a really powerful gun, especially against bosses and harder enemies. The buzz blades were also pretty good. Once you upgraded them a bit, they would get more hits on. So once you throw a buzz blade at an enemy, then it would hit them multiple times and kind of swarm them a little bit. So it was pretty good too. But those were kind of my favorite guns. And then the plasma striker was a good sniper type rifle. So it was good at taking out enemies from long range or bosses from a long range. So the plasma striker was also up there as one of my favorite guns too. Now, I did unlock the RYNO. I got all the RYNO cards, and the RYNO is so ridiculously overpowered. Once I got it at the end of the game, because you weren't able to collect all the RYNO cards until near the end of the game. So once I was able to get all the RYNO cards, then I went back and collected the RYNO just before the final boss against Captain Quark, and then Dr. Nefarious as well. So it was so overpowered. It made those final boss fights pretty easy. It definitely made them a little too easy. So one of these days when I decide to replay this game in challenge mode, I'm hoping the entire game will be a little harder, and you're supposed to keep all your guns, so it'll be fun to play the game from start to finish with the RYNO. Now quickly here, before I continue on with some of the other guns, here's a little bit of footage from the hoverboard races, which were a lot of fun. This was such a blast of nostalgia for me, because I remember doing these hoverboard races on Going Commando. I'm pretty sure was when they might have been in the very first Ratchet and Clank game. I'm just going off of straight memory, but I do remember doing them in Going Commando. So it was pretty nostalgic to do these races again. They're just a lot of fun, and I had a blast doing the hoverboard races as well. Now, of course, like most Ratchet and Clank games, at least all the ones I played on the good old PS2, there's some weapons that are kind of like, I guess, comical weapons or funny weapons, goofy weapons, whatever you want to call them. And that, in this game, was the sheepinator. Literally turns your enemies into sheep. Like, it was a pretty funny pretty funny weapon, but actually pretty good at taking down hordes of weak enemies. And yeah, it was actually a pretty good weapon. A little bit of a gimmicky one, but funny and actually pretty powerful. Now, throughout the entire game, you'd have these little sections where you'd have to use Clank, and it kind of just reminded me, I had good old Secret Agent Clank on my PSP back in the day, and it kind of reminded me just of Secret Agent Clank being this entire game where you just play as Clank, and it's all these kind of little puzzles and everything, if you will. So it was pretty fun to do these Clank sessions, or sections of the game, but they were mostly just puzzles, and honestly, it wasn't like anything crazy, just short little puzzles, and you got to play as Clank for a little bit, so it was still pretty fun. And on a few planets, you could fly around with a jetpack, and that was pretty fun. On the one planet where you had to go collect all the brains throughout the whole planet, it was pretty fun just ripping around with a jetpack, flying around the entire map and collecting all the brains. I actually enjoyed that little side quest. It was a lot of fun. So the jetpack was definitely fun to rip around on. And then you also had the boss fight against Mrs. Zircon. You also got to use the jetpack in that whole area, and that was a fun boss fight. Honestly, one of the harder boss fights in the game. I struggled with it a little bit. I think I died once. But flying around with the jetpack as you're taking on Mrs. Zircon was a fun boss fight nonetheless. It was definitely the jetpack flying around was a lot of fun and a good addition into this game. Alright, so now I want to talk about upgrading your weapons a little bit. So the weapons in the game can be upgraded. They can be leveled up by just using them and dealing damage to enemies. All you really have to do is just use them and deal damage, and then they'll gain experience and level up. And then there's also Raritanium, which you can use to upgrade your guns as well, which will be ammo upgrades or rate of fire upgrades and so on. So definitely the Raritanium, as you collected some of that, it was good to use to upgrade some of your favorite or the most powerful weapons in the game. I definitely used a lot of that to upgrade the Combustor, the Warmonger, the Buzz Blades. Like, it was just, I basically used all my Raritanium towards those guns because they were kind of my favorite and some of the better guns in the game. Same with the Plasma Striker too. That gun was definitely got a lot better as you upgraded it more. Throughout the entire game, you collected things called holo cards, and as you collected these packs and everything and got completed sets, then you would get small little buffs, I guess you could call them, like more bolts and so on. And it was, they were all right. I didn't really care to collect a bunch of them. The only ones I really cared about, of course, were the RYNO holo cards, because you got a sweet gun from collecting all those. The rest of them, I just kind of played through the game, collected the packs, and then just redeemed them or opened them, I guess you could say, and then just completed a few sets and got some little small buffs. But there's also those as well in this game. Now, same as all the old school Ratchet and Clank games from the PlayStation 2, you used to have the gold bolts or the titanium bolts, I believe they were, in up your arsenal. And so they're basically just these collectibles you can get from doing various missions throughout the game, or just they'll be hidden throughout each planet. There'll be a few hidden throughout each planet as well. And by collecting all of them, you got a trophy, of course. So you just got that achievement trophy, and then also you can do little cheats as well by collecting more gold bolts. You can get like infinite ammo and other little cheats as well, so it's definitely fun to collect them. They're fun little collectibles to try and hunt for throughout each planet. And once I was just before the final boss fight, then I decided to go back and collect all the gold bolts and just complete that, because it was fun to collect them all and they're fun to hunt. So once you get them, then you can use cheats if you want. Now, this was the boss fight against Mrs. Zircon. I found it pretty difficult, not gonna lie. Just she kept putting up these shields and then releasing a bunch of little Mr. Zircons, and then they would all just kind of fire away at you. And so I found it pretty good if you just use the Groovatron to make her just dance around. That was one of my favorite guns too, or weapons, was the Groovatron, because then you would throw it out and then it would make the enemies just basically do disco dance. It would launch a disco ball and then they'd just be dancing around. It was quite funny. So another funny weapon, as well as the Sheepinator. like all the old Ratchet and Clank games, this one also had a few sections where you got to fly around in Ratchet's ship and shoot at enemies, take down other ships. So these missions were pretty sweet. They were a lot of fun. I always enjoyed a lot of the ship missions in the old Ratchet and Clank games, and this one was no different. They were a lot of fun, a little bit different. So ripping around in the ship was always a good time in these games, and I still really enjoyed these ship missions. Now, another cool thing was they definitely threw in some little neat nostalgia bits throughout this game, especially with the holo cards, because they had a set they had a few holo cards that were from Crack in Time, and then they also had ones from Deadlocked. I'd never played Crack in Time. I did play Deadlocked, I just never had it myself, but I did play it at one of my friend's places growing up on his PlayStation 2. And then some of the weapons I remember seeing, which was pretty cool. They had the Flux rifle as part of the Plasma Striker set, and I remember that gun very well. I remember really liking it. Then you also had a card for the Agents of Doom. I remember that basically being the old version of the Glove of Doom in this game. So that was pretty cool too. I just thought it was neat that they threw some little bits of nostalgia for the people that had played a lot of the older Ratchet and Clank games in the past into this game. It was definitely, this entire game was just such a nostalgia blast, and it was so amazing. I can't wait to play Rift Apart. If you guys have seen my whole PlayStation 5 video where I went over some of the games I'd recently picked up, PS4 and PS5 games, I can't wait to start playing Rift Apart. It's going to be amazing. And even a lot of the characters in this game were pretty nostalgic, like Dr. Nefarious. I remember being the main villain in Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, and then of course Captain Cork has been in lots of the Ratchet and Clank games, so if not all of them, I'm pretty sure he has been at least in all the old PS2 ones. He was in the very first one, I believe, and then I know he was in Up Your Arsenal because he found him on the one planet and he was pretending he was a monkey, or thought he was a monkey. I just remember that very well. So yeah, it was just, the entire game was very well done, super nostalgic and awesome to play through. When I was playing through it, it was just gave me so many good memories of the old Ratchet and Clank games I used to love as a kid. And now, after playing this game, getting back into the Ratchet and Clank series and playing a Ratchet and Clank game for the first time in so many years, I definitely want to subscribe to the PlayStation Plus Premium, I believe it is, the higher subscription, so then I can play all the old Ratchet and Clank games, because I noticed they got a bunch of PS3 ones I missed because I never had a PlayStation 3. And then they got all the old PS2 ones as well that I grew up with. So I just think that would be so much fun to subscribe to it and be able to play all those old games again. It's just been so nostalgic playing this game again. And Insomniac just does such a good game, such a good job with these Ratchet and Clank games, with collectibles to find, with the holo cards in this game, and then of course all the gold bolts and titanium bolts in the older games. And then just changing up the gameplay a little bit, so you're in that third person shooting enemies and stuff, and then you get hop in your ship and fly around. They definitely do a good job of changing the gameplay up a little bit so you don't get bored throughout it. They just make really good games, and these Ratchet and Clank games are just one example. Their Marvel's Spider-Man games that they've been making are phenomenal. I've been playing through the first one and would like to make a video on that game in the future. That game's amazing, and they're going to be making a Wolverine game here too pretty soon, so I'm excited for that as well. So now, as you saw, I just collected the final RYNO card. So then I headed back to the planet where I could collect the RYNO, and it was such a good gun. Honestly, it made the last little bit of the game a little too easy. Like, it was so overpowered against Captain Cork and Dr. Nefarious. It made the end of the game so easy. So if I was wanting a little bit more of a challenge, I could have just left it be, but I thought, you know what, I went through all the work to collect the holo cards, so I might as well be rewarded and grab the RYNO right at the end of the game. So now, getting into the final boss fights. Here's the final boss fight against Captain Cork. He basically just uses a bunch of the same guns that you have already against you, and he likes to throw out the Groovatron, make you dance around, and then you just have to destroy the disco ball, and then you can attack him some more. So I found the best way to attack him was to keep throwing out Mr. Zircon, so then whenever he hit me with the Groovatron, then I could at least still be doing damage to him. And then, of course, I had the RYNO at this point, so the RYNO was very, very good against Captain Cork and super strong against Dr. Nefarious as well. Like, his health bar just melts down with the RYNO. So now, once you defeat Captain Cork, then of course you're at the final stage of the entire game, where you're chasing Dr. Nefarious, you're on the grind rails, chasing down Dr. Nefarious, and then at the very end you get to take down Dr. Nefarious. But yeah, I absolutely love this game. It was amazing, super cheap, definitely worth the $15, you know. I would even bought it if it was 40 or a little bit more too. Like, it was so nostalgic to play a Ratchet and Clank game. Again, it's been so many years. Like I said, the last one I had was Up Your Arsenal. So it's been such a long time, and Up Your Arsenal is probably still my favorite, but I can't wait to play Rift Apart. I've heard nothing but good things about that game, so I'm super excited to play Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And if I decide to get PlayStation Plus Premium, then you guys can expect more of the older Ratchet and Clank games, videos on them as well, because of course the first three, those were the ones I grew up with, and then if I ever get around to getting PlayStation Plus Premium, then I could play some of the PS3 ones as well that I missed. So I just think that would be a lot of fun to go back and play all those games again. So maybe I'll do that. Anyways, I'll let the final boss fight here play out. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. And if you did, leave a like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Artificial supernovas. I had the idea while I was rotting in jail. What better way to exact revenge on the Galactic Rangers? Right. I cannot be defeated!
Mr. Zircon is here to kill.
A warmonger? You can't be serious. There. That better not happen again. Let's make this interesting. Now, I must have my vengeance. And you thought you were winning. Now, the real fight begins.
Mr. Zircon's time
You
with
don't need
praise.
this.